machine wrong, or you've worked on upper body, but really the whole time you really meant to get to those quads or something, and that happens in business too. But we're all going very, very fast. I mean, is there anyone in this room that feels like you're going at a perfect pace? Not too fast, not too slow, just right all the time? Yeah, me neither. And so really that's the concept. This is why I wrote the book, Slow Down to Speed Up. We are living in a 24/7 world. We're living in a world where there is always a desire and a request and an insistence that we get more done in less time with fewer people and less money. How does that math work? Let me ask you guys another question. So we've talked about the sugar ants and the distractions and started to talk about how setting your priorities and saying no and deferring and declining and deflecting and all of that can help you set aside the distractions. I will throw this other thing out to you, by the way. This is very tactical, but every now and then, set your notifications to not keep throwing themselves in your face. Like you don't have to answer every text or email the second it comes in. You don't have to have your email open all the time on your desk, so no matter what you're doing, out of the corner of your eye, you've got something that you think you have to respond to. Like there are ways we can control this. We didn't create it, but we can control it. I've got a second question for you, though. So I asked, are you also chasing sugar ants? And I guess the next thing is, have you become a blur? Blur. Do you know what I mean by a blur? Like, I'll just give you the visual. I know you know what I mean by a blur. I'll give you a visual. Have you ever been on a fast train, an Amtrak, and a Acela, and you try to look out the window because something's kind of cool out there, and by the time you look, where is it? It's gone. It's just, it goes that fast, right? And that's really what happens both to us as professionals trying to be effective in the very busy world, and it happens to the people around us and our lives. It's super fast. I mean, I was just telling you about, my kids, right? My daughter's off at college, my son's 16. I came across a picture of them in the garage. He's 1.5. He's got no legs, right? Like his shorts go to here, because he's the legless boy. And, my daughter's 4.5 or 5.5, and really cute. Sassy even then, interestingly. But very cute, right? Great kids. She's a grown-up, for crying out loud. A blur. My dad, about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, was diagnosed with cancer. And I was very busy building my business. And I was not in control of all of the busyness because I wasn't just working for myself. I was working in collaboration with another firm. And so suddenly I was working with, all of these hospital presidents and CEOs and these big companies where, there was the expectation that you do a lot of work and you do it rapidly and you do it well, and then you meet with extremely senior people to help them be more successful, more effective. Well, in the meantime, my dad went to move out in California to have a better hospital experience. My brother's a physician out there, and I was on the East Coast. And somehow I had to process that it was a terminal illness, that he was dying, had to find a way to get out there. And I can remember multiple trips where I was on the plane, went to go see him, and my laptop was open for 6 hours trying to get work done, rather than sitting and thinking about, what do I want to say to my dad? What's it going to be like when I lose my dad? Let me think about some of the great things that happened with my dad. No, I'm just trying to get this stupid work done, right? And I call it stupid, now it wasn't stupid, but in retrospect, right? Like, what was more important? It's a blur. So I bring all of this up because in all of our lives, we are vulnerable to this whole blur phenomenon. We can let our lives and our careers and our families go by, and before you know it, children are grown and parents are, God forbid, sick, and right? Maybe something's happening with us. And from a career growth perspective, if you yourself are a blur, well, how do you think that impacts your career opportunities? Will you be top of mind for the next promotion? Will people say, yeah, this guy, he gets it done every time, but I never see him. I see him walking down the hall and his head's down and he's not looking at anybody. And I'm not saying that to you, but I have clients that's like, and nobody gets to know them, and they're super effective technically, but they have not lifted their head to make a relationship, to connect with somebody, to make their voices heard, around key business decisions. So we can't afford to be blurs, because it impacts everything, right? So we have a little time left. I have lots more that I can tell you and teach you, but I want to stop for a minute and ask, what is it that you came in here today hoping to learn something about? What have I mentioned but not expanded upon? What questions might you want to throw at me that might have to do with how do we make decisions about spending time, effort, energy, political capital, relationships? How do we go about being as effective and successful in our lives without burning ourselves to a crisp in the process? Any questions I can answer about that?
So, as you were describing the whole blur effect, you kind of keyed on that perception in organizations is often taken for reality. And my question would be how to best go and kind of manage that perception. Because in some organizations, it's you'll have the one person who's blurred, and not, like you said, not going and making the personal connections. But in other organizations, it's actually quite the opposite, that if you're not moving at the same speed as everyone else who's trying to act as a blur, the perception is that you're not working hard enough.
Fantastic question, and applicable. I've seen this so many times. And I will actually give you an example. So I just started working with the CEO of a company in the aerospace industry. And they're very innovative, and they're doing really cool stuff, and they're an engineering R&D sort of operation. And their culture, before he came in, is to go as fast as possible. Fast. Everybody's thinking of things fast, developing things fast, moving along fast, fast, fast. Which is great from an innovation point of view. And yet, mistakes get made, new business gets lost, relationships suffer, people get burnt out, because everyone's trying to work, well, I'm working 100 hours a week, and look what I came up with. And there are all kinds of repercussions to that. So part of what you need to be doing, any of us needs to be doing, is really understand the culture you're in. If you're in a culture where fast is rewarded, then you have to figure out who are the right people to talk to, and in what way can I start to influence that mindset, that fast equals success. What's the data I can bring in? What are the examples I can show that say, and listen, I'll give you one example. I don't know if it's perfectly applicable anymore, but I think Microsoft, for a long time, had groups that would go off on Fridays and have no meetings and nothing regular on the schedule. That was their, what I call a strategic pause, where they thought of new things, played with projects, let creativity evolve. And they were very successful. Some of those things turned into real initiatives and projects and got commercialized, and some didn't. But there was value in that kind of organizational slowdown. So if you have examples like that in a company that goes super fast all the time, or examples of where going too fast leads to very costly mistakes, sometimes which cannot get undone, that can help you build the case for change. If you're in an environment where it's the opposite, and it's sort of accepted and agreed that relationship building is important, and sometimes there are some companies where that actually slows things down too much, again, opportunity to bring in, I wonder if there are places where we can take meetings off the agenda for half a day so that we can really get these things banged out. But ultimately, listen, business is all people working with people, and that's about communication and influence and helping others see a new way of doing things. But you need to know what you're dealing with before you make your plan for how you're going to attack that. Does that answer your question a bit?
Yeah, that actually does. Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Do you have advice for setting boundaries for those of us, probably everybody in the room, who work in open plan offices? And also in